Mark, you're pretty far into spring practice.
Yeah.
Just your overall evaluation of how the linebackers are looking thus far.
Well, it's been real pleasing, and it's been really nice because last year at this time, there was a lot of question marks as far as who would be the guys, would they be the right guys, and there were guys who were doing great last year, but it just wasn't clear, and then you had some things change up after spring ball ended, and then, man, to have Jalen Alderman and TJ Quin and also Stanquan Clark play the way that they did last year was great. So you never know how that's going to look moving into spring football. A guy could come and have a little bit of complacency and think, hey, I've done something special. Or you just never know what it looks like. And to say that, especially the two returning starters and even Stanquan, I mean, they're very different animals this year. They're different beasts. They're doing a great job. They're trying to start personifying physicality, which was something that we did okay with last year at times. But that was something we needed to improve upon, and we still do. I mean, we got a long way to go as far as being as physical as we need to be in the box, but we are improving daily, and there is absolutely zero complacency from those three guys that have played. They understand if we want to get to where we want to get to, which is not, a runner-up selection anywhere, then we've got to improve. So having guys that had those type of reps and that kind of experience between those three, and then the attitudes that they've come into, and you got to remember, TJ and Jalen were third-year guys, hadn't played a ton, but they'd been here. They'd been a part of this. Stanquan he just got here. So he is continuing to develop and continue, not just physically, he's doing that also, but mentally and just the mental mindset of, hey, I don't know if he's an old head yet, but he's older than he was, So they're all three doing a really good job. Then we've got some new faces too that are improving, and they got a lot of work to do as well. But those three especially have been great. Geronte Davis was a guy that he's been a lot of different places, played a lot of ball at different places, and I actually recruited Geronte. I think it was 7 years ago now, out of high school from Greensboro, North Carolina. But he's come in and done a good job of being able to take coaching. I mean, just because you played all those years, they're all different defenses. He and I kind of laughed about that. You've been at several different schools with different coordinators. It's not like you played in the same system for 5 years or something. He's been listening to different terminology and stuff. He's come in and he wants to study and he wants to talk and he wants to work through all this stuff. So he continues to improve daily. And he has some twitch and some strength and some playmaking ability. So if he'll continue with that attitude, he's going to be, I think, another key component to our success next fall with his continued growth. And I think he will, because he does have some characteristics and some skill sets. And then, then you got some young bucks now after that, because Geronte's definitely not a young buck. I mean, he's going to be I think I'm telling you right, I think he's a 6-year guy. Just hadn't been here with us. But anyway, between Trent Carter and TJ Capers, they're running with the threes, and you just see every day those two, they got plenty of room to grow, and they do, and I'll give both of them credit, man. They take coaching very well. You never know until you get with a guy or work with him. Trent just got here. TJ was working through, an injury last year, and he's good now, but they both take coaching very well. And I hope that these last 5 days, I think we've got 5 left, they'll continue to flash a little bit so that we can see what they could be for us in the future. And hopefully not could be, but will be. It'd be nice for them to show up and make plays for us today, right now. And then our fourth group, 2 guys that are there, they're also trying to improve. Jake Shiano and Jackson Panarello. Jackson's right here across town, local guy. But they're doing a good job. They got their most reps yesterday, and it was good to see because made some mistakes, and they're going to. I remember my freshman year. Good gosh, it was terrible. So they're doing decent in that capacity. They got to keep learning and keep working. But it's good to have those guys in the room so that they can continue to grow and prosper as we go.
Mark, after what you saw out of TJ last season, what's something you're wanting to see out of him in spring up to this point, and how has he looked as it pertains to reaching that next step in his progression?
TJ Quin?
Quin, yes.
Okay. TJ Quin. Well, one thing TJ, I think, has done a good job of, he's done a good job of knowing our coverages, knowing our systems, knowing our defenses. There were times where we get, and this is the whole group, so this is not just TJ. There's times where we go to strike a block, and you got to engage blocks. You can't dodge every block. You can't avoid. You don't want to. But we got to be able to get immediate, instant lockout and get into our gaps. You know, and again, that's really a statement for the whole group, not just for TJ. But I do want him to work on that, and then just, you know, continuing to be, because he is really knowledgeable. When we sit in this meeting room, which is right across the hall, you ask him a question, he's usually the first to answer, the first to spit things out, to be more vocal while he's out on the field. He's never been poor at that, and he's gotten better. But I'd like to be able to hear him from the sideline. I'm like, if I can hear y'all from the sideline, I guarantee they can hear you from 4 feet away. You know, so but just continue to open your mouth. If you say something wrong, great. If we can hear you, we can correct it. But to have the confidence to be that verbal, and he is. You know, and again, that's the great thing about having veterans rather than last year, where we absolutely did not have any of that type of experience, sitting in the room ready to work and ready to continue to learn. And I'll say it one more time, I don't feel any, and I hope this doesn't change, complacency from any of those guys that have taken reps.
Coach English was kind of critical of TJ Capers a few weeks ago. Just he wanted to see a little bit more out of him so far this spring. What have you been seeing out of him so far, and how do you think maybe he can progress the way that you guys want him to?
Well, I think we as coaches are always determined to see more out of everybody. But what I'll say is, you know, he has made a decision to try and improve daily. And like I said a few minutes ago, I think he does a good job of taking coaching. He doesn't get real sensitive about stuff. He's willing to listen to whatever it is you're willing to tell him, because I think he wants to get better. There's a skill set in there, a quickness and some explosiveness, and so that is starting to show up. So I think TJ is on a day-to-day basis continuing to grow and get better. One thing that I remind myself when I want to see him get to where he wants to be right now, I just remind myself, hey, in reality, he's an early admissions high school senior, not last fall, right now. Okay, so you gotta put that in perspective, because you know, some of the things he's doing, you just gotta remember how young he is. He's going to continue to improve. He's going to make strides, and they should be big strides, because when you're that young, there's so many things you can improve upon. And I think he's very interested in doing that. I'll say this too. I mean, he is, you know, repetition is what gets you where you need to be. But as far as being able to give answers in the meeting room, he's there with that. Now we got to be able to get it to translate to, hey, the ball got snapped, things are moving fast, I can go fit where I need to be, I can go cover where I need to cover.
Jumping in as a true freshman spring can obviously be difficult, so many things to learn, but what have you seen from Trent as he's, you know, kind of getting used to the college game?
Well, there's no doubt what you said is 100% true. You know, Trent played on a very good high school football team. I think they went to the third round, maybe the fourth round. You know, they ended up having a good season, a good run at the end, and they play against some good caliber teams in the state of Florida, and actually traveled around and played some teams out of state as well. But there's no doubt it's extremely different than when you're walking up there on a day-to-day basis and going against those cats that Coach Owens is lining up and doing a great job of getting them to block. So it's a different experience. So, but I think Trent is learning, you know, trial by fire, I guess, because he's been going with the threes, which means he's taken a lot of reps. In spring football, those guys are getting a good amount of reps, you know. So the physicality, for the most part, is very different than what you get. And I coached high school football for 16 years. You're going to get a few of those offensive linemen here and there, but you're not consistently going to run against first team, second team, third team that you're going against out here in that practice arena. So, I mean, it's definitely a learning experience for him. And I think that he's doing well. He's got many miles to go, but he is embracing it, and he is trying to learn that physicality that you have to be able to be in that arena on a day-to-day basis. And I think he's coming along nicely.
Coach Brom has spoken about how the defense is kind of rolling along nicely so far throughout spring. I mean, it's still so early, and this might be kind of a broad question, but what's popping right now at the beginning of the year that you hope kind of carries over and you don't necessarily need to take with a grain of salt because it is so early?
Well, that's a good question. I do think we've had some good moments. I mean, you know, we got to, like any defense, we want to get better at not because on some of these days, one day's better than the other. There's been some days where we've given up big plays, and you want to be able to say, no, that's not going to be what we're doing. And I know that's one of Coach English's main points. Hey, we can't give up big plays. We can't give up free stuff. So it's something good that it's happening now, so you can learn from it and move on. But I mean, I think our guys, have really bought into, because Coach English is a high energy guy that is really excellent at leading our players and getting them excited about playing football. So, I think they bought into that. They got a full year with him coming into this unit room every day. And I think there's a sense of trust between the players, our coaches, with him leading that right there. Obviously, Coach Braum at the top of the whole thing. And it all trickles down. They know that, and I know this because we just sat in a meeting and there's questions all day long about what can we do better? Was this okay? We're constantly accountable to each other. And then I think the players see that, so therefore they like to hold each other accountable. And if you're on defense holding each other accountable, you're going to be really good because there's nobody that's slipping through the cracks that's going to come out there and give up that big play that we were talking about, 30 seconds ago. So I think that's been really good. The buy-in, you've got a few guys that will return full steam ahead over the summer and into the fall that have a lot of reps. So now if you've got that kind of buy-in and then add those pieces to the puzzle as well, it could be extremely good.
Coach, I guess along those lines, how much do you learn just in general about guys in the spring versus the fall, and how unusual is it for guys to maybe they didn't show you a ton in the spring and they make a big jump in the fall?
Well, it does happen. A lot of times, if a young man is struggling with maybe scheme or maybe fitting right or whatever it is, you can see the mentality and the effort. And I use Ashton Gelati as a reference point. He came here early, golly, I guess it was 4 years ago now, and I think day one I don't want to tell you inaccurately, but I want to say he's down with the 4s or maybe even the 5s. And as spring ball goes on, you don't say, hey, that guy's ready to do this, that, or the other, but you start seeing the components of what could be there. And then throughout the summer, it's the same work ethic all the time. And then, as you're going into fall camp, you're starting to go, holy smokes, this guy, he might be better than the guys we've got starting. And then week 2, I hope I'm telling you right, but I believe he was a starter week 2 and has never relinquished that spot. So yes, there's no doubt, had he not been here and you don't see the work ethic, the ability to be physical and the mentality of being able to play that position, I don't know if it happens as quickly as it did, but it definitely tells a tale that you can lead into later on down the line, if that makes sense.
Mark, going back to TJ Quin, and we were talking about obviously the question marks that were there this time of year. Was there anything that TJ did that surprised you last season, or I guess what was that like seeing those questions be answered pretty quickly on?
Well, I don't know if there's anything he did that purely surprised me, but it was nice to see the consistency from TJ. He would make a mistake and not harp on it. A guy that hadn't started or played a ton, sometimes something bad happens and they kind of shut it down a little bit. He never did that. He always came to the sideline. He always took whatever information was coming from the top and coming from the sideline and getting to him, and he would go back and make corrections, which I thought was a very mature thing for a guy. And again, he'd been here for 3 years, but had not played a ton. So I don't know if there's anything he did that really surprised me because I knew he was a really good football player. But that was just nice to see that he was able to be mature enough and consistent enough to work through problems without the inexperienced guy or young guy situation that sometimes comes from, I don't want to say pouting, but yeah, you shut down a little bit when things aren't going just your way. And he didn't play every game perfect or every play perfect, but was always ready to come back and, hey, on to the next one. And if something good happened, on to the next one. So I thought it was really good.
Sorry, kind of bouncing off that, you mentioned the trust that obviously Coach English was able to build kind of this being year 2. Now that he's kind of gotten comfortable in what this defense is, how do you expect him to maybe present himself as kind of a leader on that side of the ball? TJ.
Oh, TJ Quin?
TJ Quin,
I
yeah.
thought someone Coach English.
Yeah.
He does an amazing job as a
Yeah,
leader.
yeah,
But,
TJ Quin, sorry.
Anyway, no, TJ, he has, that's one of the things I talked to TJ, Jalen, and Stan Quan as well, and then any of those guys, it doesn't matter. You don't have to be an old head to come and be a leader, but I think that because of where he's at, He's shown the ability to make plays. Not only shown it, but he's done it. I mean, it's not questioned now. We can see that this happens. And if I'm a teammate of his, I see the guy's not complacent. He's not taking that as in, well, I've arrived. No, he knows there's a long way to go to get better. But then assert yourself verbally and just, put that out there in the locker room and then on the practice field and continue to do that. Because when people know you're genuine and when people know you care as a player, they will, they'll take that constructive criticism from you. They'll take that talking, that gamesmanship from you. That's what I think, and I think he has done a decent job of that, and he can still continue to improve in that area.
For you obviously were switching positions too. What was that like last year, and getting back to the position you haven't coached in a pretty long time?
Well, it was actually a lot of fun for two reasons. Number one, it was a position I hadn't been at in a few years, and then it was a brand new defense on a new staff. So we used to call them clinics, but we'd get up there every day, and when we met as a staff every day, we'd get back together and revamp everything just to make sure, talking amongst ourselves before we got out there, which I thought was great, because you're learning a lot of stuff in that defense as well as at that position. Because no matter what, whoever you ever go work with, and I've been with different guys at different levels, terminology is going to be different. Maybe the same technique, but it may be called something different. So it's constant learning. So it's just been an incredible process of being able to figure out exactly how Coach English wants it, exactly how Coach Braun wants it, and then be able to give it to the kids. Because the main thing is, are your kids able to go do it on the football field? And if they are, then we can perform at a high level and be successful. So that's been a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Coach.